Well, supermarket EV charging has evolved rapidly. At first it was totally free chargers, then it became fast chargers paid for, then it was rapid and now ultra rapid, and finally several, like Sainsbury's, now operate their own charging network. But have they all missed the point? Are their business models working? Are they doomed to end up broken, out of order, unused? I always talk about business models. Let's have a look at theirs. I'm Dave, this is Dave Takes It On. Well, what are the supermarkets trying to achieve? How are they going about it, and are they actually succeeding? My conclusions through all of this, it's up in the air. I began by looking at what each supermarket was doing and found, well, it's a total mess. It's a shambles. It seems to me a totally simple question. What does Tesco do for EV charging? And that was a really simple question, and it produced a total confusion for an answer. There is no Tesco policy. Sounds strange, but Tesco and all the others no longer own their own stores or the locations and the land they're built on. Once they did. They would buy a plot of land, they would build their own supermarkets. Remember the outcry when they sat on that last land and refused to build on it a few decades ago? Well, today they don't. I found that most stores are funded by financial groups or retail park managers. The retail park owners chose, so Tesco has Osprey. Or it has Instavolt. That's the confusion. You see, the retail owners now choose. It's no longer anything to do with Tesco. We got a classic example down at Bradley Stoke. There's a retail park there. It has a massive big Tesco extra store, but outside it there is an Osprey owned and operated charger. So that means that Tesco has got no say in that whatsoever, and that's because the retail park bought the land and it's theirs, so they set the policy. Now, Tesco also won't have built their own store. What they will do is they will get funding in from investment companies. And there are specific retail investment companies whose job it is they invest in companies like Tesco and they build a store using investors' money, and then they charge a rent and a profit and everything else, and that's how they get their money. And then they sell those funds to private investors. So you could go to one of these financial houses and they would offer you a fund, which is a retail park fund or a supermarket fund or a green supermarket fund. So it gets very confusing because there's no standardized procedure anymore. The problem with the supermarkets became, and now the retail parks are following, they're getting totally lost and they're heading in the wrong direction. In my opinion, they are stuck hopelessly in the past with no new thinking, no new understanding of what the market is and what us EV drivers actually want. There are just no new ideas. It's the same old, same old. Now we see this also with Legacy Auto. They've always done it this way. It must be right. They've been successful, so they'll always do it for the future. They are stuck in the past, and this is why they are having such a hard job in keeping up in the changing world of EV cars. We're now beginning to see it with supermarkets. They are totally stuck in the past, they are totally misreading the market and have no understanding whatsoever of the EV charger buyers. Okay, so where are they? Well, let's look at the old model. When people had petrol cars, and a lot of people still do, obviously, petrol and diesel, every single ICE car owner has to go to a petrol station and has to buy fuel from a petrol station. They can't make it at home. They can't get it anywhere else. They all go to a petrol station. And many of these are now very price conscious and they will look for the cheapest fuel. Now, the supermarkets realised this, and so they decided a few decades ago to cash in on it. And they started installing petrol stations at the supermarkets. You see, the thing is, with ICE car drivers, they all visit the supermarket, and every single one of them is a potential buyer, not only of the products in the supermarket, but also of the petrol in their petrol forecourts. They're a target audience, and it's really convenient. If you're out and about doing your weekly shopping, hey, why not just top up while you're out shopping? You know, if you don't, you will only have to go out to the petrol station on another occasion. And you also know that that petrol station is likely to be dearer than your local supermarket. So your supermarkets were very clever. They spotted this quite early on. They started opening up petrol stations in virtually all the supermarkets. And now the supermarkets have the biggest share of the entire petrol market in the UK. Very clever move. It has done another thing, and that is that the Tide petrol forecourts, these are your Shells and your Essos and your BPs, they have had to follow suit. They have had to drop their prices to match or get close to matching the supermarket low prices. Now, they don't want to go that low, so they do two things. They put their standard fuel at a very competitive price, just maybe a couple of pence dearer than the supermarket. And they advertise that as this is better than the supermarket rubbish. They just buy any old stuff off the open market. We have better lubricants, better this, better that, better for your engine. Everything is better. So that couple of pence difference on the basic fuel is a good investment. However, they also offer their premium fuels. And these are super duper fuels now. These offer you better miles per gallon, although they don't say that. They offer superior cleaning of your engine while you're doing them. They offer much better efficiency, much better life of the engine. There's less engine wear, better lubricants, etc., etc., etc. And many people will go to the premium garages, to the premium pumps, because they believe that that offers them some sort of advantage. Now, the reality is, most people don't need it. That really is for high-end cars, for sports cars, performance cars. But there are many people out there who think, well, it's dear, it must be better. I'll get that one. It'll be better for my car. So what's the problem? Well, EVs don't work anything like that. And the supermarkets don't seem to have spotted it yet. Okay, the first thing is, not all EV drivers go to the equivalent of a petrol station. They don't all go to public chargers. Over 70% of all EV drivers can and do charge at home. These are not my figures or made up. These are government figures, and you'll find them also on the ZapMap surveys. Over 70% of all EV drivers can and do charge at home. So 70% of the drivers don't need public chargers, apart from when they go on the longer distances. They certainly are not going to drive down to the supermarket and charge up at the supermarket paying for it if they can get it at a cheap overnight rate at home. So 70% of all EV drivers are not in the market, they're not buyers for the chargers that the supermarkets operate. So the first thing is the supermarkets have just lost 70% of the market. EV drivers who go shopping once a week, but none of them will charge while they're doing the weekly shopping. They probably will never charge anywhere near where they live. Why would anyone with an EV drive down to the supermarket and charge if they can charge at home far cheaper? So they've lost most of the market. Most of the people who arrive to shop at the supermarket are no longer looking to buy their fuel. EV drivers, and a good percentage of them, never charge at a public charger at all. I get countless comments which say, Dave, you say about public charging, but I've never charged at a public charger. I charge at home every night. My car's always ready the next day, and I don't do long distances anymore. I'm retired, or we don't go anywhere. So for many of the 70% of the EV drivers who are going out shopping who aren't going to buy the EVs, they'll never go to a supermarket to buy their charging. It's really simple. And the supermarkets don't seem to have realised that. What they also found with EV drivers is, well, most people have got a better, cheaper way of charging their car using public chargers. You see, while the supermarkets have a total monopoly, all the supermarkets are pretty much the same price, within a penny or two of that. And all the tied petrol stations like the BPs and the Shells, they're always a couple of pence more, but not a pound more or not a pound less. It's always fairly close. With EVs, that's not the case. You see, most of the supermarkets are pricing their EV chargers at between 75, that's Sainsbury's, or 79p for some of the others. And EV drivers will never go there. They have totally misread the market. And you think, yeah, they've got many people visiting their store, many people driving past their charger, but about 70% of them will never use them. And the other 30%, they almost certainly, over a bit of a period of time, have learned that you don't need to pay 75 or 79 pence. You could go to Fastned, about 64, 65p. You could go to EV on the Move, 65p. You could go to an awful lot of places, even Ionity, 74p. And so all of these are a lot cheaper than the supermarket. So I suspect that of all the people supermarket shopping throughout the week, less than 30% are in the market for charging somewhere, but I suspect only 5 or 10% will ever use these chargers. And perhaps 1% regularly will. And that backs up what I see when I'm out on the road. Most chargers at supermarkets are empty. Now, you would think with thousands of customers a day that there'd be queues for those chargers outside the supermarkets. The local Tesco, always empty. Local Asda, always empty. Morrison's, empty. They're all deserted. So when I go out and I'm driving around looking specifically for chargers, I'm finding the supermarket ones are empty. So that's showing that the EV chargers for these supermarkets, they're not working. They're not earning them a revenue. So, okay, so what would convince them? Because I've said some of those 30%, these are people who can't charge at home. They have to use public chargers. So the first suggestion I got for the supermarkets is just open up overnight the fast chargers. These are payable ones. Tesco at the moment locally is 44 pence a kilowatt hour. But most of the supermarket car parks have a time limit, 2 or 3 hours. And that's to prevent people parking there for the day. It's a logical choice. But why do they have a 2-hour limit at 4 a.m.? If they are available for use, the chargers, during the day, without any need to shop, you can just go in there, you can charge, you can go for a walk in the park, you can go and walk down the high street, go and have a coffee. You don't have to go in the store. There's no requirement to go in the superstore. So if you can use them during the day, it's a business, you're paying 44 pence. I'm assuming they'll make a profit at that. Why don't you open them up at night? At 5 o'clock or whenever the main street closes and there is no longer any need to protect your car park from people leaving the cars there all day, why don't you just open them up? 7 o'clock right through till 9 o'clock next morning. No parking restrictions. If you want to come and park your car, you're welcome to do so. That would attract business. Everybody knows where the supermarkets are. The car parks are fairly safe. So why don't they use that as a business and try and get people there? And it might work the other way around, that if people are charging there, they might well, on another visit, decide to go and shop there as well. So that's the first thing they should do. Just open up all the car parks overnight, let people charge any time from, say, 6, 7 in the evening right through to 7, 8, 9 in the morning, depends on when they need the car parks. The second thing they can do is do what supermarkets do, which is drop your prices. You see, what they seem to forget is that with a typical 50 kilowatt hour battery, that's the size of it, an EV driver will save £7 on one fill by choosing an EV on the move at 65p or a Fastned 64p. And they will save about £18.50 if there's a nearby Tesla open to all supercharger down off peak at about 42 pence. Now, if you have a choice of saving £7 or £18.50, would you go and use the supermarket chargers while you're shopping? No, of course you wouldn't. So the supermarkets, if they want to get a whole pile of business, they could charge 40 something pence for rapid and ultra rapid chargers. And most people who cannot charge at home would now happily charge there while they're shopping. They're not going out of their way. They're not having to drive somewhere, leave their car overnight. If they have an ultra rapid charger, 150 kilowatts, and they were charging 40-ish pence per kilowatt hour, most people, while they're shopping, however flat the battery was, could park the car there, plug it in, go shopping. Most people spend the best part of an hour shopping. Some people spend a lot longer. So there is an answer for the problem. They have misread the market. They're expecting all the people who come shopping at the supermarket are potential customers for their EV chargers. They're not. They're also suspecting that while they charge 79p, they will get enough business to make it worth their while. They won't. They've got some way to go to understanding what EV drivers actually do. So I call this an overall total lack of understanding. They need to be talking to people to find out why their chargers are empty. I was down at Bradley Stoke, Bristol, a little while back, and they've got a beautiful retail park there. It's brand new, it's a lovely park. There's a McDonald's, there's a massive big Tesco, there's a load of stores. And lovely park, and it's very busy. And they've just installed, this was the retail park owner or manager who organised this, and they installed 16 Osprey chargers. These are the Kempower, the 150 kilowatts for 400 volt system and 300 kilowatts for the 800 volt cars. Cracking array, beautiful to see, all nicely laid out, carefully set aside. The manager, when I spoke to him, said nobody's using them. You see, again, this is what we're talking about. None of the local people, if they can charge at home, and Bradley Stoke is quite an up-and-coming area. It's in the middle of a housing estate. Well, a housing estate, by definition, means most people, if it's a modern estate, have got off-street parking. If you've got off-street parking, you can charge your car at home. So all of the people who live in the nearby housing developments, and it's a big area, are not customers for these chargers. Not. You see, on the motorway, there's a big retail park there. They've got lots of EV charging there. That's actually on the motorway. There's also motorway services in Bristol and just outside Bristol. These also have EV chargers. So if you're on a road trip and you're on the motorway, heading north or south on the M5, you're not going to drive to Bradley Stoke. You're going to go to either one of the motorway services or Cribbs Causeway, the retail park, where there's a number of charging locations. So Bradley Stoke, the retail park, they seem to have totally misunderstood, along with most of the other supermarkets, what the market is and what we EV drivers want. So there's a bit of an awakening going to be needed for them. Those chargers are not going to be used. There's 16 at Bradley Stoke, 2 or 3 are in use at any time. When I was there filming, I don't think I ever saw 2 cars there, but the manager confirmed that they just never get busy. It's a total overkill for that location, particularly being in the middle of a number of brand new housing developments. And these housing developments, they no longer build terraces. Well, I suppose someone does, but most housing developments now are individual houses. They're semis or townhouses, or they're detached. And they, by definition, will normally have off-street parking. So all these thousands of people who live within walking distance of this charger, the Osprey charger at Bradley Stowe, none of them will use it, ever. They won't get any traffic from the motorway. Who thought that 16 Kempower chargers, 150 kilowatts there, would actually be a good investment? I don't know, but there is a lack of understanding. So the supermarkets are now probably going through a process. A number of supermarkets have already become their own networks. I include here Sainsbury's. So Sainsbury's in the past would just rent out part of their car park to Instavolt or GridServe or Ionity or whoever it was, and they had nothing to do with it. They just rented out. They lost a few of their car parking spaces. They may have arranged some sort of payment deal, I don't know, or a rental deal, I don't know. I'm sure they would. But they didn't have an awful lot of involvement in EV parking. Recently that's changed, and they've suddenly realised that there's money in EV charging, but only if you get it right. So their first thought seems to have been, well, if everyone else is charging 79p, we'll charge 79p, and they'll come here instead, and they'll charge while they're shopping. And they don't actually think this through. It's not grown-up thinking. It is, if people are using chargers nearby at 79p, they can come here and use them at 79p. Sorry to disillusion you supermarkets, but that's not going to work. And you're going to find that Sainsbury's will be facing a dilemma shortly, because they're now investing their own money into their own charging network. They are their own charger network, so they can charge whatever price they want. So in theory, if Sainsbury's wanted to, they could charge nothing. It's free. So while you're shopping here, you can get free or cheap EV charging. Now then they'd be used, and if you priced it accordingly, if you shop here, take your ticket or your parking ticket in, get it stamped, and your charging is going to be 40p, everybody would do it. Everybody who can't charge at home. Because don't forget, charging at home, you're going to be paying 6, 7, 8p overnight for your charging. Why on earth would you pay 40p at the supermarket? And even if you don't have a cheap off-peak tariff, the standard variable tariff at the moment is around about 25p. So if the supermarkets charge any more than 25p, no one who can charge at home will ever use them. So there's going to be a big shake-up. So I was pleased to see that the supermarkets were getting involved. I was very saddened to see they have no understanding of what they're actually doing. I think this is going to hurt us in the long run, because there are going to be so many chargers around the country just not being used. They're in the wrong place. They're at the wrong price. They're not attracting the business that they expected. And therefore there is a danger that supermarkets will just pull the plug and go, hasn't worked, rip them all out. Let's go back to selling petrol. That one's never going to work, because the sale of petrol is on the decline as well. And sooner or later, certainly 2030, which is only 6 years away, they will not be selling pure ICE cars anymore. So the petrol market is going to be declining rapidly. So supermarkets, you've had your day. You got in early at the right time on the petrol. You did wonders on that. You've got in early on the EVs. You got it right in the early days. Free charging. People will go there just to shop. But once you started seeing it as a business, you've totally lost the plot. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. I'm Dave. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. Everyone counts. If you'd like to see more of the videos, then please subscribe. People underestimate the impact of subscribing, but for a small channel, recently new channel like ours, YouTube monitors us closely, and if they see people are subscribing, it's telling YouTube that they want to see more of our videos. And they will then spread our video out to a wider audience. So if you do like our videos and you would like to see more, please click the subscribe button. It makes such a difference to us. Well, a big thank you to our Patreon members for supporting this channel. Special shout out goes to Darren. He's our first top tier member. Thank you, Darren. Well, members get access to videos not shown on YouTube, including bloopers, They also have an active chat room where they can contact me directly and ask questions. But of course, members really support the channel financially. That allows us to make the videos that we do. So for more details, please check in the description down below.